Elena Martinez woke up at 4:30 in the morning, just like she did every day. Her small room was still dark. She shared this apartment with two other women who also worked as housekeepers. The walls were thin, and she could hear someone snoring in the next room. Elena sat up slowly and rubbed her eyes. She had been dreaming about her grandmother again. In the dream, they were sitting together at an old piano, and her grandmother was teaching her a beautiful song. Elena got dressed quietly. She put on her plain gray uniform and tied her long black hair into a tight bun. She looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall. She was 32 years old, but sometimes she felt much older. The lines around her eyes showed how tired she was. She had been working as a maid for 7 years now, ever since she came to America from Mexico. She walked to the kitchen and made herself a cup of instant coffee. The apartment was quiet. Her roommates would not wake up for another hour. Elena drank her coffee slowly, looking out the window at the dark street below. She thought about her family back home in Mexico. Her father was sick and needed medicine. Her two younger brothers were still in school. Every month, Elena sent most of her money to them. It was why she lived in this small room and why she ate simple food and why she never bought new clothes. At 5:15, Elena left the apartment and walked to the bus stop. The morning air was cold, and she pulled her thin jacket closer to her body. Only a few other people were out this early. They were all workers like her, heading to their jobs before the sun came up. The bus arrived and Elena got on. She sat near the window and watched the city pass by. Big buildings, closed shops, empty sidewalks. In 30 minutes, she would arrive at the house where she worked. Victor Ashford lived in a huge house on the rich side of town. Elena had been cleaning his house for 3 years now. Mr. Ashford was a famous piano player. People all over the world knew his name. He had won many awards and played concerts in the biggest theaters. His house was filled with expensive things. There were beautiful paintings on the walls, soft carpets on the floors, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But the most beautiful thing in the house was the piano. It sat in a large room that Mr. Ashford called his music room. The piano was black and shiny, so big that it seemed to fill half the room. Elena cleaned this room every morning. She dusted the piano very carefully, making sure not to touch the keys or disturb the papers that Mr. Ashford left on top of it. These papers were covered with musical notes that looked like tiny birds sitting on wire fences. Elena got off the bus and walked the last 2 blocks to Mr. Ashford's house. The street was lined with tall trees and big houses with perfect gardens. She used her key to open the side door and went inside. The house was quiet. Mr. Ashford usually woke up at 7, so Elena had 2 hours to clean before he started his day. She began in the kitchen, washing the dishes that Mr. Ashford had left in the sink from the night before. Then she cleaned the bathrooms, mopped the floors, and dusted the furniture. She worked quickly and quietly. By 6:30, she had finished most of the house. Only the music room was left. Elena pushed open the door to the music room and turned on the lights. The big piano gleamed under the lights. Sheet music was scattered across the top of the piano and on the floor around it. Mr. Ashford had been working late last night. Elena could tell because there were 2 coffee cups on the small table, and the chair where he sat was pushed back like he had stood up quickly. She started to clean, picking up the coffee cups first. Then she bent down to gather the papers from the floor. As she picked them up, she looked at the musical notes. She could read music. Not many people knew this about her, but Elena had learned to play piano when she was a little girl. Her grandmother had been a music teacher in their small village in Mexico. Every day after school, Elena would run to her grandmother's house and they would sit at the old piano together. Her grandmother's hands were wrinkled and gentle, and she would guide Elena's small fingers across the keys. They would play for hours, and her grandmother would tell her that music was a gift, something that no one could ever take away. Elena had loved playing piano more than anything. She dreamed of becoming a music teacher like her grandmother. But then everything changed. When Elena was 16, her father got sick. He could not work anymore. Her mother worked in a small shop, but it was not enough money. Elena's grandmother died that same year, and the old piano was sold to help pay for the funeral. Elena had to leave school and find work. She worked in a factory, then in a restaurant, then cleaning houses. When she was 25, she decided to go to America. She had heard that there were more jobs there, that she could make more money and help her family. It was not easy. She had to cross the border with the help of people who took almost all her savings. When she finally arrived in the United States, she was alone and scared and did not speak English very well. For 7 years, she worked hard. She learned better English. She sent money home every month. She became a good housekeeper. But she never touched a piano again. There was no time for music when you were trying to survive. There was no time for dreams when your family needed food and medicine. But now, standing in Mr. Ashford's music room, Elena felt something pull at her heart. The piano seemed to be calling to her. She looked at the door. The house was completely silent. Mr. Ashford would not wake up for at least 30 more minutes. Elena knew she should not do what she was thinking of doing. It was wrong to use her employer's things. She could lose her job, but her hands seemed to move by themselves. She walked to the piano and pulled out the bench. She sat down slowly, her heart beating fast. The piano bench was soft, much nicer than the hard wooden stool her grandmother had. Elena looked down at the keys. They were perfect, white and black, clean and beautiful. She placed her hands on the keys. They felt cool and smooth under her rough fingers. Her hands were not soft anymore. Years of cleaning had made them red and rough, and her nails were cut short and plain. But as she touched the keys, she remembered how it felt to play. Elena took a deep breath and began to play. She chose a piece by Chopin, a composer her grandmother had loved. It was called Nocturne in C-sharp minor. The music flowed from her fingers slowly at first, then stronger. She had not played in 16 years, but her fingers remembered. They knew where to go, which keys to press, how hard to push down. The music filled the room. It was soft and sad and beautiful. Elena closed her eyes and let herself feel the music. For these few minutes, she was not a maid in someone else's house. She was not a tired woman who sent all her money to her family. She was just Elena, playing piano like she used to do with her grandmother. She played about missing her grandmother. She played about leaving her home and coming to a strange country. She played about all the dreams she had buried deep inside her heart. The music said all the things she could never say with words. It spoke about loneliness and hope and love and loss. Elena did not hear the door open. She did not hear the footsteps that stopped just inside the room. She was lost in the music, her eyes closed, her whole body moving slightly with the melody. When she finally played the last note and the sound faded away, she sat very still for a moment, her hands still resting on the keys. Then she heard a small sound behind her. Elena's eyes flew open. She spun around on the bench and her heart seemed to stop. Mr. Ashford was standing in the doorway. He was wearing a dark robe and his gray hair was messy from sleep. But he was awake and he was staring at her. Elena jumped up so fast that the bench almost fell over. Her face felt hot with shame and fear. "Mr. Ashford, I am so sorry," she said quickly. Her words tumbled out fast. "I should not have touched your piano. I am very sorry. It will not happen again. Please, I am very sorry." She wanted to run from the room, but Mr. Ashford was blocking the door. She stood there, her hands shaking, waiting for him to yell at her, to tell her she was fired, to call the agency and say he needed a new maid. But Mr. Ashford did not yell. He just stood there looking at her with an expression she could not read. His face was serious and his dark eyes were fixed on her face. The silence stretched out long and terrible. Elena felt tears starting to form in her eyes. Finally, Mr. Ashford spoke. "How long have you been able to play like that?" His voice was quiet and calm. Elena was confused. This was not what she expected him to say. My grandmother taught me when I was young," she said. Her voice was shaking. "But I have not played for many years. I am sorry. I know I should not have touched your piano." Mr. Ashford walked into the room. Elena stepped back, pressing herself against the piano. He walked past her to the window and stood there, looking out at the garden. He was quiet for a long time. Elena did not know what to do. Should she leave? Should she stay? Should she apologize again? "Who taught you that piece?" Mr. Ashford asked, still looking out the window. "My grandmother," Elena said. "She was a music teacher. She loved Chopin." "Your technique is not perfect," Mr. Ashford said. Elena felt her face get hot again. Of course her technique was not perfect. She was just a maid who used to play piano as a child. What did she expect? But then Mr. Ashford turned around and looked at her. "Your technique is not perfect," he repeated. "But the way you play, you understand the music. You feel it. That is something I cannot teach my students no matter how hard I try. Elena did not know what to say. Was he angry or not? She could not tell. Mr. Ashford walked to his desk in the corner of the room. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder of papers. He brought it to the piano and placed it on top. "Do you know this piece?" he asked, opening the folder. Elena looked at the music. Her eyes went wide. It was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. Even Elena, who had not played in years, knew this piece. It was one of the most difficult piano pieces ever written. Famous pianists spent years learning it. The music was filled with huge chords and fast runs and complicated rhythms. "Yes, I know it," Elena said quietly. "But Mr. Ashford, I could never play this. It is too difficult." "Maybe," Mr. Ashford said. "Maybe not. Tomorrow morning I want you to come here at 6 o'clock. Before you start cleaning. I want you to try to play the first part of this piece. Just try. Can you do that?" Elena stared at him. Was this really happening? Was this some kind of test? Was he making fun of her? But when she looked at his face, he seemed serious. His eyes were not laughing at her. I can try," Elena said. "But why?" Mr. Ashford looked at the piano, then back at her. "Because I have been teaching piano for 30 years, he said. "I have taught students who went to the best music schools in the world. I have taught students who pay me thousands of dollars for lessons. But when I heard you play just now, I heard something I have not heard in a very long time. I heard someone who plays from the heart." He picked up the folder of music and held it out to her. "Take this home tonight. Look at it. Study it if you want. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock I will be here waiting." Elena took the folder with shaking hands. She did not understand what was happening. Why would a famous piano player like Mr. Ashford want to hear her play? Why would he give her a chance to try such a difficult piece? "Now you should finish your cleaning," Mr. Ashford said. "I am going to make coffee." He walked out of the room, leaving Elena standing there alone with the music in her hands. She looked down at the complicated notes on the page. This was impossible. She could not play this. She was just a maid. She had not had a piano lesson in 16 years. Her fingers were rough from scrubbing floors and washing dishes. But as she stood there in that beautiful music room with the morning light coming through the windows, Elena felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could try. Maybe music could still be part of her life, even if just for one morning. Elena finished cleaning the house, but her mind was somewhere else the whole time. She kept thinking about the piano, about Mr. Ashford's face when he heard her play, about the impossible music he had given her. When her work was done, she left the house and walked to the bus stop, holding the folder of music carefully under her arm. On the bus ride home, she opened the folder and looked at the notes. They were like a different language, complicated and dense. But somewhere in those notes there was music. There was a story waiting to be told. And tomorrow morning Elena would try to tell that story, even if her hand stumbled and her playing was not perfect. When Elena got back to her apartment, her roommates had already left for their jobs. The apartment was empty and quiet. Elena did not rest. Instead, she borrowed her roommate's laptop and searched online for recordings of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3. She put in her earphones and listened while she looked at the music. Listened to it 5 times, then 10 times, then 20 times. She listened until she had to leave for her afternoon job cleaning another house on the other side of town. Even while she cleaned, she heard the music in her head. Even while she rode the bus and ate her simple dinner and got ready for bed, the music played in her mind. That night, Elena could not sleep. She lay in her small bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow morning, she would go to Mr. Ashford's house early. She would sit at his beautiful piano, and she would try to play music that seemed impossible for someone like her. She was scared. She was excited. She was confused. But most of all, she felt alive in a way she had not felt in years. Music was calling her back, and even though she did not know where this path would lead, she knew she had to walk it. Elena closed her eyes and thought of her grandmother. She imagined her grandmother's warm smile and gentle hands. Music is a gift, her grandmother used to say. And a gift is meant to be shared, not hidden away. Tomorrow, Elena would share her gift even if her hands shook and her heart raced with fear. Tomorrow, she would remember what it felt like to be more than just a maid. Tomorrow, the music would speak again. Elena barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the musical notes from Rachmaninoff's piece dancing in her mind. She kept thinking about Mr. Ashford standing in the doorway, listening to her play. She wondered if she had dreamed the whole thing. Maybe when she went to his house in the morning, he would not remember what he had said. Maybe he would laugh and tell her to just clean the house like she always did. At 4 in the morning, Elena gave up trying to sleep. She got out of bed and got dressed. Her hands were shaking as she buttoned her uniform. She looked at herself in the mirror and took a deep breath. She could do this. She had to at least try. Elena arrived at Mr. Ashford's house at exactly 6 o'clock. The sun was just starting to come up and the sky was pale pink and orange. She used her key to open the door and stepped inside quietly. The house was silent. Maybe Mr. Ashford had forgotten. Maybe he was still sleeping. But as Elena walked toward the music room, she saw light coming from under the door. Her heart started beating faster. She stood outside the door for a moment, trying to calm herself. Then she knocked softly. "Come in," Mr. Ashford's voice called from inside. Elena opened the door. Mr. Ashford was sitting in the leather chair near the window. He was already dressed and he had a cup of coffee in his hand. When he saw Elena, he nodded toward the piano. "Good morning," he said. "Sit down and play." Elena walked to the piano on legs that felt weak. Her whole body was trembling. She sat down on the bench and placed her hands on the keys. They felt cold this morning. Or maybe her hands were just cold because she was so nervous. "I looked at the music all night," Elena said. Her voice came out small and quiet. "But Mr. Ashford, I do not think I can play this. It is too hard." "Just try," Mr. Ashford said. "Do not worry about mistakes. Just play what you can." Elena took a deep breath and began. The opening of Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto started with big chords that her hands could barely reach. She pressed down the keys and the sound came out harsh and loud. She tried to play the next part, where the notes moved fast up and down the piano, but her fingers got tangled. She made mistake after mistake. After just 2 minutes, she stopped and put her hands in her lap. "I cannot do it," she said. She felt tears burning in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I am wasting your time." "Keep going," Mr. Ashford said. His voice was firm but not unkind. Elena started again. This time she got a little further before she made mistakes. There was one part where the music became softer and sadder. Even though her fingers stumbled over the notes, even though she played wrong keys and could not keep the right speed, something in that sad section touched her heart. She forgot for a moment that she was making mistakes. She just tried to feel what the music was saying. When she finally stopped, she could not look at Mr. Ashford. She was sure he would tell her this was a bad idea, that she should just go back to cleaning his house and forget about playing piano. But Mr. Ashford did not say that. Instead, he stood up and walked to the piano. He stood next to the bench and looked down at her. "Do you know why I give you this piece?" he asked. Elena shook her head. "Because I have been teaching students for many years," Mr. Ashford said. "They come to me from the best music schools. They can play every note perfectly. They never make mistakes. But when they play, I feel nothing. The music is correct, but it is empty, like a beautiful house with no one living inside." He sat down on the bench next to Elena. There was barely enough room for both of them. "But when you play," he continued, "even with all your mistakes, even with your rough technique, you make me feel something. In that sad part just now, you understood what Rachmaninoff was trying to say. You felt his loneliness, his longing for his home. You played like someone who knows what it means to lose something precious." Elena looked at him surprised. "But the mistakes," she started to say. "We can fix mistakes," Mr. Ashford said. "I can teach you technique. I can teach you the right fingering, the right tempo, the right dynamics. But I cannot teach someone to feel the music. You already have that. It is a gift." He stood up and walked back to his chair. "From now on, you will come here every morning at 5 o'clock before your regular work starts. I will teach you, not just this piece, but proper technique, music theory, everything you need to know." Elena stared at him. "But Mr. Ashford, I cannot pay you." "I do not have money for lessons." "I do not want your money," Mr. Ashford said. "You are already working for me. Think of this as part of your job. You clean my house and I teach you piano. Does that sound fair?" It did not sound fair at all. Piano lessons from someone as famous as Mr. Ashford cost hundreds of dollars per hour, but Elena was not going to argue. This was like a dream coming true and she did not want to wake up. Yes, she said. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do not thank me yet, Mr. Ashford said, but there was a small smile on his face. I am not an easy teacher. I will work you very hard. Now let us start with some basic exercises. Your hands need to remember how to play properly. For the next hour, Mr. Ashford taught Elena. He showed her how to position her hands correctly on the keys. He taught her scales and arpeggios. He made her play simple exercises over and over until her fingers moved more smoothly. He was demanding and strict, correcting every small mistake, but Elena did not mind. She was so happy to be playing piano again that nothing else mattered. When the clock struck 7, Mr. Ashford stood up. That is enough for today, he said. Now you should start your regular work. Tomorrow at 5 o'clock we will do this again. Elena stood up from the piano. Her fingers felt tired, but good. The way muscles feel after exercise. Mr. Ashford, she said, why are you doing this for me? He was quiet for a moment, looking at the piano. Because you reminded me of something I had forgotten, he said finally. You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. It was not for the awards or the fame or the money. It was because music can speak when words fail. It can express things too deep for language. When I heard you play yesterday, I remembered that feeling. Consider this my way of saying thank you. Then he left the room and Elena began her regular cleaning work. But everything felt different now. As she dusted and mopped and scrubbed, she felt lighter. She caught herself humming the Rachmaninoff piece. For the first time in many years, she felt like she had something to look forward to besides just work and sleep and sending money home. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. Every morning, Elena arrived at Mr. Ashford's house at 5 o'clock. Every morning, they worked together at the piano. Mr. Ashford was a tough teacher. He made her play the same passages over and over until they were correct. He taught her breathing techniques and how to move her body with the music. He explained the history of the pieces they worked on, telling her about the composers and what they were feeling when they wrote the music. Slowly, Elena improved. Her fingers became stronger and more flexible. Her rough technique became smoother. She started to understand music theory in a way she never had as a child. Mr. Ashford gave her homework, exercises to practice in her mind when she did not have access to a piano. Elena would practice finger movements on the bus, moving her fingers in the air as if she were playing, but their arrangement was a secret. Mr. Ashford did not tell anyone about their morning lessons. Elena only told her roommates that she had to start work earlier. She did not mention the piano lessons. She was afraid that if she talked about it, the magic would disappear and everything would go back to normal. Then one morning, everything changed. Elena was at the piano, playing a section from the Rachmaninoff piece. She had practiced this part hundreds of times, and finally, she was playing it correctly. Her fingers moved smoothly across the keys and the music flowed out beautiful and strong. She was so focused on the music that she did not hear the door open. Suddenly, Mr. Ashford stood up from his chair. "Stop," he said sharply. Elena stopped playing immediately and turned around. But Mr. Ashford was not looking at her. He was looking at the doorway and his face was angry. Elena followed his gaze and saw a man standing there. He was younger than Mr. Ashford, maybe 50 years old, wearing an expensive suit. He was staring at Elena with his mouth open in surprise. "Victor, what is going on here?" the man asked. "Why is your maid playing your piano?" "Get out, Richard," Mr. Ashford said. His voice was cold and hard, but the man, Richard, did not leave. Instead, he walked into the room. "Are you teaching her?" he asked. He sounded shocked and angry. "Are you actually giving piano lessons to your housekeeper?" "That is none of your business," Mr. Ashford said. "None of my business?" Richard's voice got louder. "I am your manager, Victor. Everything you do is my business. Do you know how this looks? You have students who pay thousands of dollars for your time. Rich people, important people, talented people, and you are giving free lessons to someone who cleans your toilets?" Elena felt her face burn with shame. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to run from the room, but her legs would not move. She just sat there on the piano bench feeling small and worthless. "Elena, stay where you are," Mr. Ashford said, as if he knew she wanted to run away. Then he turned to Richard. "I will say this one more time. Get out of my house." "Victor, be reasonable," Richard said. "What are you trying to prove here? That you are a man of the people? That you care about the working class? This is ridiculous. You are one of the greatest pianists in the world. You cannot waste your time on someone who will never be more than a mediocre amateur." She has more talent in her rough fingers than half my students have in their whole bodies, Mr. Ashford said. His voice was shaking with anger now. She plays with her heart and soul. She understands music in a way that cannot be taught. You know nothing about music, Richard. You only know about money and image and publicity. And you know nothing about protecting your reputation, Richard shot back. When word gets out about this, and trust me, it will get out, people will laugh at you. Your students will be insulted. The media will have a field day. Is that what you want? The two men stared at each other. The air in the room felt heavy and dangerous. Elena finally found her voice. Mr. Ashford, she said quietly, maybe he is right. Maybe this is not a good idea. I should just clean the house like before. I do not want to cause you problems. No, Mr. Ashford said firmly. He looked at Elena. This is my house, my piano, and my decision. Richard works for me, not the other way around. Then he looked back at Richard. If you cannot support my choices, then perhaps we should end our professional relationship. Richard's face went red. You are making a huge mistake, he said. But fine. Do what you want. Just do not come crying to me when this blows up in your face. He turned and walked out of the room. They heard the front door slam a moment later. The house was quiet again, but the peaceful feeling from before was gone. Elena sat at the piano, her hands folded in her lap, not knowing what to say. Mr. Ashford walked to the window and stood there for a long time, looking out at the garden. Finally, he turned back to Elena. I am sorry you had to hear that, he said. He is right, though, Elena said softly. I'm just a maid. You are a famous musician. This does not make sense. It makes perfect sense to me, Mr. Ashford said. Elena, do you want to continue our lessons or do you want to stop? Elena thought about it. Part of her wanted to say they should stop, that it was too complicated, that she did not want to cause trouble. But another part of her, the part that loved music, that had felt alive again these past 2 weeks, that part could not imagine going back to a life without piano. I want to continue, she said. Good, Mr. Ashford said. Then we will continue. Do not worry about Richard. He will calm down, and even if he does not, it does not matter. Now let us get back to work. You were playing that section beautifully before we were interrupted. Try it again. Elena turned back to the piano and placed her hands on the keys. But her hands were shaking, and when she tried to play, the notes came out wrong. She could not focus. She kept thinking about Richard's words, about how she was just a maid, about how she would never be more than a mediocre amateur. Elena, Mr. Ashford said gently, look at me. She turned to face him. Music does not care if you are rich or poor, he said. It does not care if you clean houses or live in a mansion. Music only cares if you have something to say, and if you say it honestly. You have something to say. I hear it every time you play. Do not let small-minded people make you doubt that. Elena nodded. She took a deep breath and turned back to the piano. This time she pushed Richard's voice out of her mind. She thought about her grandmother instead, about the old piano in her grandmother's house, about how music had always been a place where she felt safe and understood. She began to play again. The notes came out stronger this time. She made mistakes still, but she kept going. The music spoke about struggle and doubt and the determination to keep trying even when others said you were not good enough. When she finished the section, she looked at Mr. Ashford. He was smiling. Much better, he said. Now do it again. And so they continued their lesson, even though both of them knew that Richard's warning was probably true. People would find out about these lessons eventually. There would be gossip and criticism and judgment. But in that moment, sitting at the piano in the morning light, none of that seemed to matter. All that mattered was the music and the chance to become something more than what the world expected. 3 weeks after Richard had walked in on their lesson, Mr. Ashford made an announcement that shocked Elena. They were sitting in the music room after a morning practice session. Elena had just finished playing a piece by Liszt, and she was feeling proud because she had made fewer mistakes than usual. Mr. Ashford had even nodded in approval, which was rare. Elena, he said, I want you to perform at my salon next month. Elena was sure she had heard him wrong. Perform? She asked. What do you mean? I host a salon every year, Mr. Ashford explained. It is a private concert where my best students perform for important people in the music world. Conductors, composers, wealthy patrons who support the arts. This year I want you to perform. Elena felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Mr. Ashford, I cannot do that. I am not ready. I am not good enough. These people will laugh at me. You are more ready than you think, Mr. Ashford said calmly, and I would not ask you to do this if I did not believe you could do it well. But what will people think? Elena asked. Your students, the important people you invite, they will all wonder why a maid is performing. It will be embarrassing for you. Mr. Ashford leaned back in his chair. Let me tell you something, Elena. When I was young, I cared very much about what people thought. I played music to impress others, to win awards, to make people applaud. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what music was really about. You reminded me. You play music to express something real, something true, that is worth more than 1,000 perfect performances. I will make mistakes, Elena said. Her voice was shaking. I always make mistakes. Then you will make mistakes in front of an audience, Mr. Ashford said with a small smile. Every musician makes mistakes, Elena, but the audience will forgive mistakes if they feel something real. And trust me, when you play, people feel something. Elena did not know what to say. Part of her was terrified, but another part, a small brave part, was excited. She had never imagined she would play piano for anyone except Mr. Ashford. The idea of performing in front of important people seemed impossible. But maybe that was the point. Maybe she needed to do something impossible. What would I play? She asked quietly. Liszt's Liebestraum No. 3, Mr. Ashford said. You have been working on it for 2 weeks, and it is coming along beautifully. It is shorter than the Rachmaninoff, but it has the emotional depth to showcase what you can do. We have 4 weeks to prepare. That is enough time. 4 weeks. 28 days. Elena's mind raced. Could she really do this? Could she stand in front of sophisticated, educated people and play piano? What if she forgot the notes? What if her hands froze? What if people whispered and laughed? I am scared, Elena admitted. Good, Mr. Ashford said. If you were not scared, it would mean you did not understand what you are about to do. Fear means you care. Now let us get to work. We have a lot to do in 4 weeks. The next 4 weeks were the hardest of Elena's life. She worked at her cleaning jobs during the day, but every spare minute was spent thinking about the piano. She practiced the fingering movements while she scrubbed floors. She hummed the melody while she folded laundry. At night she could not sleep because the music played in her head over and over. Every morning at 5 o'clock she met with Mr. Ashford. He was more demanding than ever. He made her play the same sections dozens of times. He taught her how to walk on stage, how to bow, how to sit at the piano with confidence even when she felt terrified inside. He worked on her posture, her breathing, the way she moved her arms and hands. Remember, he told her again and again, you are not just playing notes on a page. You are telling a story. Liebestraum means dream of love. What does love feel like to you? What does it mean to dream of something you want but cannot have? That is what you need to express. Elena understood this. She knew about dreaming of things she could not have. She had spent years dreaming of playing piano again, and now here she was preparing to perform. But she also dreamed of other things. She dreamed of bringing her family to America. She dreamed of a life where she did not have to work 2 jobs just to survive. She dreamed of being seen as more than just a maid. All of these dreams and longings poured into the music when she played. As the date of the salon approached, Elena became more and more nervous. She started making more mistakes in her practice sessions because her hands shook so much. One morning, just 1 week before the performance, she broke down crying at the piano. I cannot do this, she sobbed. I am going to embarrass you and embarrass myself. Please, Mr. Ashford, let me cancel. Tell people I am sick. Tell them anything. Mr. Ashford did not say anything at first. He just let her cry. When her tears finally stopped, he stood up and walked to the piano. He sat down on the bench next to her. Do you know why I chose you for this? He asked. Elena shook her head, wiping her eyes with her rough hands. I have 3 students who will also perform at the salon, Mr. Ashford said. They are all technically brilliant. They have studied at the best conservatories. They can play the most difficult pieces without mistakes. But when they play, the audience sits there politely and claps politely and then goes home and forgets what they heard. He looked at Elena. You are different. When you play, even with your mistakes, even with your imperfect technique, people will remember, because you play with your whole heart. You play like someone who knows that music is a privilege, not a right. You play like someone who understands loss and hope and struggle. But what if people judge me? Elena asked. What if they think I do not belong there? Some people will judge you, Mr. Ashford said honestly. Some people will think it is strange that a housekeeper is performing at my salon. But the people who truly love music, the people who understand what music is really about, they will hear past all of that. They will hear you. He stood up and walked to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. He brought it back to Elena. The photo showed a young boy, maybe 10 years old, sitting at a piano. The piano was in a small, simple room with plain walls. That is me, Mr. Ashford said. I grew up very poor, Elena. My father was a janitor. My mother cleaned houses just like you do. We had almost nothing. But my mother saved money for 5 years to buy that cheap used piano. My first teacher was an old woman who gave me lessons in exchange for my mother cleaning her apartment. I know what it is like to be judged for where you come from. Elena stared at the photograph. She had never imagined that Mr. Ashford, who lived in such a big house and was so famous, had once been poor like her. I worked very hard to get where I am, Mr. Ashford continued. And yes, I was lucky too. I had talent and I had people who believed in me, but I never forgot where I came from. When I heard you play that first morning, I saw myself in you. I saw someone who loved music more than anything, who had been forced to give it up, who carried that loss every day. I wanted to give you the chance that someone once gave me. He put his hand gently on her shoulder. So yes, you will be nervous. Yes, you might make mistakes. Yes, some people will judge you. But you will walk onto that stage and you will play, because you deserve to be there just as much as anyone else. More than anyone else, because you know what it costs to make music when the world tells you that you should not. Elena looked at the photograph again, then at Mr. Ashford. She saw in his eyes the same determination she felt in herself, the same refusal to let circumstances define what was possible. She took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, she said. I will do it. Good, Mr. Ashford said, smiling. Now play it again, from the beginning. And this time, play it for that little boy in the photograph and for your grandmother and for everyone who said you could not. The night of the salon finally arrived. Elena stood in the back room of Mr. Ashford's house, wearing a simple black dress that Mr. Ashford had insisted on buying for her. It was the most expensive piece of clothing she had ever worn. Her hands were shaking so badly that she had to clasp them together to keep them still. She could hear the voices of the guests arriving, the sound of expensive shoes on marble floors, the clink of champagne glasses. Through a crack in the door, she peeked out at the salon. It was filled with elegantly dressed people, men in suits and women in designer dresses. These were not her people. These were people who belonged to a world she could never be part of. Mr. Ashford's 3 other students performed first. Elena watched from the back room. The first student, a young man about 20 years old, played a Beethoven sonata perfectly. Every note was correct, every rhythm was precise. The audience clapped politely. The second student, a teenage girl, played Chopin. She was technically flawless. Again, polite applause. The third student played Prokofiev, his fingers flying across the keys with impressive speed and accuracy. More applause. Then it was Elena's turn. Mr. Ashford walked to the front of the room to introduce her. Elena's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. My final performer tonight is special, Mr. Ashford said to the audience. She is not a traditional student. She comes from humble circumstances and has only recently returned to music after many years away. But I believe that music is not about pedigree or privilege. It is about truth and honesty and the courage to express what is in your heart. Please welcome Elena Martinez. Elena walked out from the back room. The audience turned to look at her. She saw their faces, some curious, some skeptical, some confused. She walked across the room to the piano, her legs feeling like they might collapse at any moment. She was aware of everything, every whisper, every raised eyebrow, every judgment. She reached the piano and sat down on the bench. Her hands were cold and damp with sweat. She looked out at the sea of faces staring at her. In the front row, she saw Richard, Mr. Ashford's manager, with his arms crossed and a smirk on his face. He wanted her to fail. She could see it in his eyes. Elena looked at Mr. Ashford, who was standing to the side. He gave her a small nod of encouragement. She thought about what he had told her. She thought about the little boy in the photograph who grew up poor but never stopped believing in music. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that music was a gift that no one could take away. She placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes. For a moment she forgot where she was. She forgot the audience in the fancy room and the people who thought she did not belong. She thought only of the music. Elena began to play. The opening notes of Liebestraum, Dream of Love, filled the room. Her hands moved across the keys and the melody flowed out like a river. This was a song about longing, about loving something you could not quite reach. Elena poured everything into it. She played about missing her grandmother. She played about leaving her home and coming to a strange country. She played about cleaning houses and sending money to her family and giving up her dreams to survive. She made mistakes. Her fingers stumbled in a few places. The dynamics were not always perfect. But she did not stop. She kept playing, letting the music carry her forward. As the piece built to its emotional climax, Elena felt tears on her face, but she did not stop to wipe them away. She just played, expressing everything she had kept locked inside for so many years. When she played the final soft notes and the music faded into silence, Elena sat very still. She was afraid to open her eyes, afraid to see the disappointment on people's faces. The room was completely quiet. No one was clapping. Elena felt her heart sink. She had failed. She had embarrassed Mr. Ashford and herself. But then she heard a single person start to clap. She opened her eyes and saw an elderly man in the front row standing up. He was applauding and tears were streaming down his face. Then another person stood up and another. Within seconds, the entire room was on their feet clapping. Not polite applause, but real, genuine applause that seemed to fill every corner of the room. Elena stood up from the piano bench, shocked. She looked at Mr. Ashford and saw that he too had tears on his face. He was smiling at her with such pride that she felt her own tears start again. She bowed awkwardly, not sure what else to do, and then walked quickly back to the side of the room. As the applause finally died down, Elena stood there shaking, hardly believing what had just happened. People came up to her, telling her how beautiful her performance was, how moved they were. The elderly man who had stood first came to her and took her hand. "I have been attending concerts for 50 years, he said in a trembling voice. "I have heard the greatest pianists in the world. But your performance tonight reminded me why I fell in love with music as a child. Thank you." Elena did not know what to say. She just nodded and thanked him. But inside something had changed. She had done the impossible thing. She had stood in front of people who came from a different world, and she had played her heart out and they had listened. They had really listened. Later that night, after all the guests had left and Elena was helping to clean up, Mr. Ashford found her in the kitchen. 3 days after the salon, Elena's life changed in ways she could never have imagined. She was riding the bus to work when her phone started ringing. It was a number she did not recognize. Usually Elena did not answer calls from strange numbers, but something made her pick up this time. "Hello, is this Elena Martinez?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is Elena," she said cautiously. "My name is Jennifer Chen. I am a writer for the Classical Music Review. I was at Victor Ashford's salon 3 nights ago and I heard you perform. I would like to write an article about you. Would you be willing to meet with me?" Elena was confused. "An article? About me? Why?" "Because your story is remarkable," Jennifer said. "And your performance was one of the most moving things I have heard in years. People need to hear about you." Elena did not know what to say. She agreed to meet with Jennifer, mostly because she did not know how to say no. 2 days later, they met at a small coffee shop. Jennifer was a young woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She asked Elena questions about her life, about her grandmother, about how she ended up working as a maid, about her lessons with Mr. Ashford. Elena answered honestly, though she felt strange talking about herself so much. She was used to being invisible, to being someone people did not really see or think about. Now this woman was writing down everything she said as if it mattered. "Why do you want to write about me?" Elena asked. "I am nobody special." Jennifer looked at her seriously. "That is exactly why people need to hear your story. Because you are not nobody special. You are someone who had a gift, who lost it because of circumstances beyond your control and who found it again. You are someone who works hard every day just to survive but still has room in your heart for beauty and art. That is incredibly special, Elena." The article came out 1 week later. Elena's roommate showed it to her on a tablet. The headline read, "The Maid Who Made Me Remember Why I Loved Music." The article told Elena's whole story, about growing up in Mexico, learning piano from her grandmother, having to give it up, coming to America, working as a maid, and being discovered by Mr. Ashford. Jennifer had written beautifully about Elena's performance, about how her playing had touched everyone in the room. Within hours, the article had been shared thousands of times on social media. People were commenting, sharing their own stories of having to give up their dreams, expressing how moved they were by Elena's journey. By the next morning, news websites and television programs were calling Elena, wanting to interview her. Elena was overwhelmed. She did not understand why so many people cared about her story. But Mr. Ashford explained it to her. "People are hungry for stories of hope," he said. "They are tired of hearing only about people who were born with advantages. Your story reminds them that talent and passion can exist anywhere, even in the most unlikely places." More opportunities came. A famous classical music label called Prestige Records offered Elena a recording contract. A prestigious music conservatory offered her a full scholarship. Television programs wanted her to appear on their shows. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Elena's story. But with all this attention came serious problems. The biggest problem was immigration. Elena had been working in the United States on a tourist visa that had expired 2 years ago. She was undocumented. She had been too scared to try to fix her status because she was afraid of being deported. She needed to work to send money to her family, and she could not risk losing that ability. Now, with her face suddenly all over the internet and television, immigration authorities noticed her. One morning, Elena received a letter. She was being investigated. There would be a hearing in 6 weeks to determine if she would be allowed to stay in the country or if she would be deported back to Mexico. Elena was terrified. If she was deported, she would lose everything. She would lose her chance to study music. She would lose her jobs. Worst of all, she would not be able to send money to her family. Her father was still sick and needed expensive medicine. Her brothers were counting on her support to stay in school. Mr. Ashford immediately hired the best immigration lawyer he could find. The lawyer's name was David Park, and he had helped many people with immigration cases. But even David looked worried when he reviewed Elena's situation. "The case is complicated," he told Elena during their first meeting. "You overstayed your visa by 2 years. Normally, that would result in deportation. However, you have some things working in your favor. You have no criminal record. You have been working and contributing to society. And now with all this publicity, you have many influential people who support you. But will that be enough?" Elena asked. David was honest with her. "I do not know. Immigration law can be very strict, but we will do everything we can." While the immigration case moved forward, Elena tried to continue with her life. But things at Mr. Ashford's house had become difficult. His other students had found out about Elena's lessons and they were angry. 2 of them quit, saying they felt betrayed. They had paid thousands of dollars for lessons, and here was Elena getting the same instruction for free. Worse, rumors began to spread. Some people whispered that the whole thing was fake, that Mr. Ashford had invented Elena's story as a publicity stunt. Others suggested that there was something inappropriate about their relationship, that Mr. Ashford must have some hidden motive for helping her. The comments on articles about Elena were often cruel. People called her an illegal alien who was stealing opportunities from Americans. They said she was using her sob story to manipulate people. They said she was not really talented, just lucky. Elena tried not to read the comments, but it was hard. Every cruel word felt like a knife. She started to doubt herself. Maybe they were right. Maybe she did not deserve all this attention. Maybe she was taking opportunities that should go to someone else. One night, it all became too much. Elena was in her small apartment, looking at her phone and reading terrible things that people were saying about her online. She thought about her immigration hearing coming up in 3 weeks. She thought about all the expectations people now had for her. She thought about the recording contract that required her to produce an album in 6 months, when she barely had enough pieces prepared. She thought about the conservatory scholarship that would require her to move to a different state, away from the few people she knew. She felt like she was drowning. This was not what she had wanted. All she had wanted was to play piano again. She had not asked for articles or television interviews or recording contracts. She had not asked for people to debate whether she deserved to be in this country. She had just wanted to make music. Elena turned off her phone and left her apartment. She walked through the dark streets, not sure where she was going. Eventually, she found herself at a small Catholic church in her neighborhood. The door was unlocked and she went inside. The church was empty and quiet. A few candles flickered near the altar. Elena sat in a pew and put her head in her hands. She cried quietly, all the stress and fear and confusion pouring out of her. She prayed to her grandmother, asking for guidance. What should she do? Should she fight to stay in America with all its opportunities and problems? Or should she go back to Mexico, back to simplicity and family, but also back to giving up her dreams? She sat there for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe two. She did not notice when someone else came into the church and sat down beside her. Finally, she looked up and was shocked to see Mr. Ashford sitting there. "How did you find me?" Elena asked. "Your roommate said you left upset," Mr. Ashford said. "I know you sometimes come to this church." I took a guess. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Elena spoke. "Mr. Ashford, I think I made a mistake. I should not have performed at the salon. I should not have talked to that journalist. Everything is ruined now. People hate me. Immigration wants to deport me. Your students are angry. I have caused so many problems." "Elena," Mr. Ashford said gently, "do you regret playing piano again?" "No," Elena said immediately. "Playing piano has made me feel alive again. It has given me hope." "Then you did not make a mistake," Mr. Ashford said. "Everything else, all the complications and attention and problems, those are just noise. What matters is that you found your way back to music. Everything else we can deal with. But what if I am deported?" Elena asked. "What if I lose everything?" Mr. Ashford was quiet for a moment. "I have spent 30 years performing for audiences all over the world," he finally said. "I have won every award there is to win. I have more money than I could ever spend. But in all those years, I forgot what music really means. I played perfectly and felt nothing. Then I heard you play and I remembered. You gave me back something I had lost." He turned to look at her. "So even if the worst happens, even if you are deported, even if you never play another concert, you have already accomplished something remarkable. You reminded people what music is really about. You touched people's hearts. That matters, Elena. That matters more than any award or contract or immigration status." "I am scared," Elena whispered. "I know," Mr. Ashford said. "But here is what I have learned. You do not have to choose between your truth and success. You do not have to choose between being yourself and being what others want you to be. You just have to keep playing, keep being honest, and trust that the right path will reveal itself." He paused, then added, "But you also do not have to do this alone. You have me. You have David, your lawyer. You have many people now who believe in you and want to help. Let us help you, Elena. Let us fight this battle together." Elena looked at Mr. Ashford. This proud, famous man had come to a small neighborhood church in the middle of the night to comfort his housekeeper. No, not his housekeeper anymore. His friend. His student. Someone he cared about. "Okay," Elena said. "I will keep fighting. But I need to do it my way. I do not want to be famous. I do not want to be on television or give interviews. I just want to play music and help my family and live a quiet life. Is that possible?" "We will make it possible," Mr. Ashford said. "You can turn down the recording contract if it does not feel right. You can defer the conservatory scholarship until your immigration situation is resolved. You can say no to the television shows. You control your story, Elena, not them." They sat together in that quiet church for a while longer. Elena felt calmer now. She was still scared about the immigration hearing, still worried about all the changes in her life, but she did not feel so alone anymore. When they finally left the church and walked back out into the night, Elena felt something she had not felt in days. She felt ready to face whatever came next. She would go to her immigration hearing. She would tell the truth about who she was and why she was here. She would let the judge decide her fate. But whatever happened, she would not regret having played music again. She would not regret having been true to herself. The next morning, Elena went to see David, her immigration lawyer. She told him about her decision to be completely honest, to not hide anything or try to manipulate the system. David listened carefully. "That is a good approach," he said. "Honesty is always the best strategy in these cases. But Elena, you should know that even with honesty, the outcome is uncertain. The judge has discretion, but the law is strict about visa overstays." "I understand," Elena said, "but I want to do this with dignity. If I am deported, I want it to be because of the rules, not because I tried to trick anyone." David smiled. "You know, I have had many clients over the years. Most of them just want to win at any cost. But you care about doing things the right way. That is admirable. Over the next 3 weeks, David prepared Elena's case. He gathered letters of support from everyone who had heard Elena play at the salon. He collected articles about her story. He prepared arguments about why Elena should be allowed to stay, emphasizing her contributions to the community, her plans to study music formally, and the fact that she had always worked hard and stayed out of trouble except for the visa issue. Meanwhile, Elena made another important decision. She had been offered a chance to perform at a fundraiser concert for a music education program that taught underprivileged children. The concert was scheduled for the same week as her immigration hearing. Many people told her she should skip it, that she needed to focus on preparing for the hearing. But Elena decided to do it anyway. "If these are my last days in America," she told Mr. Ashford, "I want to spend them doing what I love and helping children who remind me of myself." The fundraiser concert was at a small school in a poor neighborhood. The audience was mostly families from the community, children and teachers. There were no fancy dresses or expensive champagne. But when Elena walked onto the simple stage and saw all those faces, young and old, looking at her with hope and excitement, she felt more at home than she had at Mr. Ashford's elegant salon. She played 3 pieces that night. She played Chopin's Nocturne, the piece she had been playing when Mr. Ashford first heard her. She played Liszt's Liebestraum, and at the end, she played a simple Mexican folk song that her grandmother had taught her, arranged for piano. When she played this last piece, many people in the audience who were from Mexico or Latin America began to cry. They recognized the song. It spoke to them of home and family and the bittersweet mixture of loss and hope that comes with immigration. After the concert, Elena did something that surprised everyone. She announced that she would teach piano for free to children in the community 1 afternoon a week, starting immediately. She did not know how long she would be able to do this. Maybe only a few weeks before she was deported, but she wanted to give back, to pass on the gift that her grandmother had given her. The morning of Elena's immigration hearing arrived cold and gray. Elena woke up at 4 in the morning, too nervous to sleep any longer. She got dressed carefully in the same black dress she had worn to Mr. Ashford's salon. It seemed like the right thing to wear to court. She looked at herself in the mirror and took a deep breath. Today, a judge would decide if she could stay in America or if she would have to leave everything behind and go back to Mexico. Mr. Ashford picked her up at 7 o'clock. David, her lawyer, met them at the courthouse. As they walked up the steps to the building, Elena saw news cameras and reporters. The story of the piano-playing maid had captured people's attention, and now they wanted to see what would happen to her. "Do not talk to them," David advised. "We will make a statement after the hearing if appropriate." Inside the courthouse, they sat on hard wooden benches and waited. Elena's hands were cold and shaking. She clasped them together in her lap. Mr. Ashford sat beside her, a quiet presence of support. After what felt like hours but was really only 30 minutes, a clerk called Elena's name. They entered a courtroom. It was smaller than Elena had imagined from watching television shows. The judge, a woman named Judge Patricia Morrison, sat behind a high desk at the front of the room. She had gray hair and glasses and a serious expression. Elena felt her stomach twist with fear. The hearing began. A government lawyer presented the case against Elena. She had overstayed her visa by 2 years. She had worked without proper authorization. According to the law, she should be deported. The lawyer spoke in a flat, emotionless voice, reading facts from papers. To him, Elena was just another case, another number. Then it was David's turn to speak. He stood up and addressed the judge respectfully. "Your Honor, I would like to present some context for Ms. Martinez's situation. Yes, she overstayed her visa, but she did so because her father in Mexico became seriously ill and her family needed financial support. Ms. Martinez has worked hard, paid taxes through her employers, and has never committed any crime. She has contributed positively to our community." David presented letters of support. There were letters from Mr. Ashford, from the people who had attended the salon, from the director of the music school where Elena had started teaching children. There were even letters from some of her cleaning clients, people whose houses she had cleaned for years, saying she was honest and hardworking and deserved a chance. The judge read through the letters silently. Her face did not show what she was thinking. Then she looked at Elena. "Ms. Martinez, would you like to speak?" Elena stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stand straight. Yes, Your Honor. Please tell me in your own words why you think you should be allowed to remain in the United States. Elena took a deep breath. She had practiced what to say, but now all her prepared words disappeared from her mind, so she just spoke from her heart. Your Honor, I came to America because my family needed help. My father was sick and we had no money for his medicine. I knew it was risky, but I thought if I could just work hard and send money home, I could save my father's life and help my brothers stay in school. I never meant to break the law. I was just trying to help my family survive. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I know I should have tried to fix my visa status earlier. I was scared. I was afraid that if I tried to fix it, I would be sent back immediately and then my family would have no support at all. It was wrong to wait, and I am sorry for that. The judge nodded but said nothing, so Elena continued. I love America. I love the opportunities here. I have been able to rediscover my passion for music, something I thought I had lost forever. I have been able to help children in my community learn piano. I have worked hard at every job I have had. If you allow me to stay, I promise I will continue to work hard and contribute. I will follow all the rules. I will make you proud of your decision. Elena's voice cracked a little at the end. She felt tears forming in her eyes, but she held them back. She wanted the judge to see her as strong, as someone who deserved respect. Thank you, Ms. Martinez, Judge Morrison said. You may sit down. Elena sat down, her heart pounding. The judge looked at more papers. She asked David some questions about Elena's future plans. She asked the government lawyer some questions about the law. The whole time Elena sat frozen, barely breathing. Finally, Judge Morrison set down her papers and looked directly at Elena. Ms. Martinez, your case is difficult. The law regarding visa overstays is clear, and normally I would have no choice but to order deportation. However, I have discretion in cases with extenuating circumstances. Elena's heart raced. Was that good or bad? I have read all the letters supporting you, the judge continued. I have read about your talent and your work with children. I have also considered your honesty today. You did not try to make excuses or minimize what you did. You took responsibility for your mistakes. The judge paused, and in that pause, Elena felt like the whole world held its breath. Therefore, I am granting you temporary protected status while your application for permanent residency is processed. You may remain in the United States legally. You may work legally. You will need to check in regularly with immigration services and follow all requirements. Do you understand? For a moment, Elena could not process the words. Then they sank in. She could stay. She was not being deported. She could stay in America legally. Yes, Your Honor, Elena managed to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do not thank me, Ms. Martinez, Judge Morrison said, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. Thank yourself for having the courage to tell the truth. This court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, Elena burst into tears. Mr. Ashford hugged her, something he had never done before. David was grinning widely. The reporters rushed toward them, shouting questions, but Elena did not care. She was staying. She could continue her life here. She could keep studying music. She could keep helping her family. She could keep teaching the children. That evening, there was a concert at the school where Elena had performed at the fundraiser. It had been planned weeks ago as a regular concert for the students, but now it felt like a celebration. Elena was scheduled to perform one piece, but first, she wanted to see her students play. Elena had been teaching at the school for 3 weeks now. She had 12 students, all children from immigrant families who could not afford private piano lessons. They ranged in age from 7 to 14. They all had different levels of talent, but what they shared was passion and determination. Her students performed that night, each playing a simple piece. They made mistakes. Some of them forgot parts and had to start over, but they played with heart, and their families cheered loudly for each one. Elena watched from the side of the stage, feeling proud and emotional. These children reminded her so much of herself at their age, full of dreams and hope. When it was Elena's turn to perform, she walked onto the stage. The small auditorium was packed with families from the community, with Mr. Ashford and his friends, with some of the people who had supported her immigration case, and with her students sitting in the front row. Elena had decided to play something special tonight. Instead of Chopin or Liszt, she would play a piece she had been working on secretly. It was her own composition, the first piece of music she had ever written. She had been working on it late at night for the past month, and she had not shown it to anyone, not even Mr. Ashford. She sat at the piano and looked out at the audience. "This piece is called The Journey Home," she said. "I wrote it for my grandmother, for my family in Mexico, for everyone here who has left their home to build a new life. And I wrote it for all the children who dare to dream, even when the world tells them they cannot." Elena began to play. The piece started soft and sad, like someone saying goodbye to everything they know. Then it grew stronger, full of determination and courage. There were parts that sounded like struggle, where the music became harsh and difficult. But then it would soften again, finding moments of beauty even in hardship. Toward the end, the piece combined the sad melody from the beginning with a new, hopeful melody. It was about carrying your past with you while building a new future. It was about loss and gain, about goodbye and hello, about leaving and arriving. When Elena played the final notes, the auditorium was silent for a long moment. Then the applause began and people stood up. But what moved Elena most was seeing her students in the front row. They were standing and clapping, some of them with tears streaming down their faces. They understood. They knew exactly what the music was saying because they were living the same story. After the concert, people crowded around Elena, but she made her way to her students first. She hugged each one and told them how proud she was. "You keep practicing," she told them. "You keep believing in yourselves. Music is a gift, and it is yours forever. No one can take it away." Later that night, Mr. Ashford drove Elena home. They rode in comfortable silence for a while. Then Mr. Ashford spoke. "I did not know you were composing music." "I was not sure I could do it," Elena admitted. "I have never written music before. But I had so many feelings that I needed to express, and somehow they became a piece of music." "It was beautiful," Mr. Ashford said. "Truly beautiful. You have a gift for composition as well as performance. Have you thought about studying that formally?" "Maybe," Elena said. "Right now, I am just grateful to be able to stay here and keep learning. The conservatory scholarship is still available, and now that my immigration status is being resolved, I can actually accept it. But I do not want to leave the children I am teaching. I do not want to leave this community." "Then do not leave," Mr. Ashford said. "Study part-time. Take online classes. There are many ways to learn. But do not give up teaching those children. You are changing their lives, Elena. I see it in their faces." When they pulled up to Elena's apartment building, Mr. Ashford pulled a small package from his coat pocket. "I have something for you," he said. Elena opened the package. Inside was a beautiful leather journal with blank pages. On the first page, Mr. Ashford had written something. Elena read it by the light of the street lamp. "Elena, when I asked you to play Rachmaninoff that first day, I was testing whether music could still surprise me. You taught me that music is not about perfection. It is about truth. You saved my relationship with my art, and I will spend the rest of my life grateful. This journal is for you to document your journey, so you never forget that your music spoke when the world needed to listen. With deepest respect and affection, Victor." Elena looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for believing in me, for teaching me, for fighting for me." "No," Mr. Ashford said softly. "Thank you for reminding me what matters." He pulled out one more item from his briefcase. It was the full score of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, the piece he had first given her months ago. On the cover he had written, "When you are ready." "No rush, we have time." Elena smiled through her tears. "We have time," she repeated. She liked the sound of that. After so many years of rushing, of just trying to survive day to day, the idea that she had time felt like a luxury beyond measure. Elena went up to her small apartment and sat on her bed. She opened the journal and picked up a pen. She thought for a moment, then began to write about everything that had happened, from that first morning when she played piano in Mr. Ashford's music room, to the immigration hearing, to the concert tonight. She wanted to remember all of it, the fear and the hope, the mistakes and the triumphs, the moments when she felt like giving up and the moments when she found the strength to continue. As she wrote, Elena thought about her grandmother. She wished her grandmother could see her now. But in a way, she felt her grandmother's presence in everything she did. Every time she sat at a piano, every time she taught a child a new piece, every time she let music speak the things she could not say with words, her grandmother was there. Elena put down her pen and looked at the Rachmaninoff score sitting on her small desk. Someday she would play that concerto. Maybe not perfectly, but with all her heart. She would play it for her grandmother and for her father, and for every person who had ever had to choose between survival and their dreams. She would play it to say that sometimes, if you are lucky and brave and you have people who believe in you, you do not have to choose. Sometimes you can have both. Elena was still a housekeeper. She still cleaned Mr. Ashford's house 3 times a week and worked at other houses too. She still sent money to her family in Mexico every month. But now she was also a piano student, a teacher, and a composer. She was someone who had faced her fears and won. She was someone whose music had spoken and changed lives, including her own. The road ahead would not be easy. She still had to complete her immigration process. She had to balance work and study. She had to help her students and continue improving her own skills. There would be more challenges, more doubts, more moments when she felt overwhelmed. But Elena knew something now that she had not known before. She knew that she belonged in the world of music just as much as anyone else. She knew that her story mattered. She knew that when you find your voice and use it honestly, people will listen. Not everyone, and not always with kindness, but enough people will listen to make it worthwhile. Elena closed her journal and turned off the light. Tomorrow she would wake up early and go to Mr. Ashford's house for her lesson. Tomorrow she would practice the pieces she was learning and work on her own compositions. Tomorrow she would teach her students and clean houses and send money home and live her complicated, messy, beautiful life. But tonight, she let herself feel something she had not allowed herself to feel in many years. She let herself feel proud. Not prideful or arrogant, but genuinely proud of who she was and what she had accomplished. She had not given up when things were hard. She had not hidden her gifts to make others comfortable. She had played her truth and her music had spoken to people's hearts. Elena thought about all the children she was teaching, all the young people who would hear her story and think, maybe I can do that too. Maybe my dreams are not impossible. That was her real achievement, not the performances or the articles or the scholarship. Her real achievement was showing others that music and beauty and art belong to everyone, not just the privileged few. As Elena drifted off to sleep, she smiled. She had come to America as a scared young woman just trying to survive. She had spent years invisible, unnoticed, working hard in silence. But then she had found the courage to let herself be seen, to share her gift, to speak through music. And in doing so, she had discovered that she was never just a maid who played piano. She was a musician who happened to clean houses, a teacher who happened to scrub floors, an artist who happened to work multiple jobs. The music had spoken. It had said that every person has worth and dignity. It had said that talent and passion can bloom anywhere. It had said that it is never too late to reclaim your dreams. And people had listened. The music had changed everything, just as Mr. Ashford said it would. But more importantly, the music had allowed Elena to become fully herself, to step into her own story as the main character, rather than just a background player in someone else's life. And that, Elena thought as sleep finally claimed her, was worth all the fear and struggle and uncertainty. That was worth everything.